and welcome to this week's edition of the National Hour. I'm Jeff Hammersley. Alongside me, Hayden Grove. We have Olympics, we have basketball, we have a whole bunch of stuff. But first, Hayden, let's open it up. Ohio State basketball back in business. They took down Iowa last week, 76-69 on the road in Iowa. And really for the Buckeyes, that was a huge win, one of two this past week.
Yeah, I mean, I could not believe what I saw in terms of the offensive numbers. I mean, 5 guys were in double figures for Ohio State. When's the last time that happened? It's definitely been a long time. They shot the ball well. They defended well. They went into Iowa City and beat Iowa at their place after beating Wisconsin in Madison. I mean, what a run for them. I mean, I think that's going to propel them going forward. Obviously, we'll talk about the winner against Purdue in a little bit, but I think these 2 road wins are going to set up a sort of change for Ohio State from, the free fall to the, get back to being Ohio State.
I think for the Buckeyes, it's another huge, at the time, a ranked win. Really walking in before Wisconsin, before Iowa. Who did Ohio State play? Who did they win against? Notre Dame and Marquette. Those 2 games aren't alone. If you struggle in your conference, it's going to help you get into the tournament. These 2 wins, however, will, especially with them being road wins against top 20 teams.
Yeah, the fact that they're top 25 teams is huge. I mean, you can go into a Big Ten environment and win on the road. Penn State, you can go into Happy Valley and win there, and it's not as big a deal. But I think Iowa this year, especially the way that they are, kind of taking people by surprise. I think it was big to kind of get rid of that, overcome that momentum that they have, and get a big win over there. It was just an all-around effort. I mean, if you look at the numbers, Ohio State shot 51% from the field, which is unheard of when we're talking about this Ohio State team. 43% from 3. I mean, it was just an offensive game for them, and I think that's what we're seeing. We're just seeing Ohio State put the ball through the hoop. I mean, it sounds stupid, but hey, it's basics.
I mean, really for Ohio State, putting the ball in the hoop between Minnesota, Nebraska, and a couple of games, Michigan State for most of that game. It was like they didn't know what the hoop was. I mean, shooting was atrocious at times, struggling, and as a fan, absolutely frustrating to watch and see because look at last year's Ohio State team. They shot well. They had a nice run into the tournament. Even though it ended in the Elite Eight, they at least could shoot the ball and could survive. Game-winning shots against Arizona and Iowa State. This year, they run past everybody until the Big Ten schedule starts heating up. I mean, looking against Penn State a couple weeks ago, this team was up by 11 once upon a time. All of a sudden couldn't shoot the basketball. I mean, that's very problematic. But I think for the Buckeyes, it's a huge win. And then leading on to the game after that, they played Purdue at home. And really that adds on, makes it a 3-game win streak. That the Buckeyes are currently on right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're rolling, and it's all about offense. We talk about this team as a defensive basketball team. Aaron Craft kind of leading the way defensively for them. Even Shannon Scott playing well, but I think that just everything considered, they're using their defense to hold on, but they're using their offense to excel, and I think that might be a problem for them down the stretch because if guys don't show up offensively, I think they're going to have a hard time winning games. But if they can keep this rolling offensively, if they can keep it going. There's no limit to where this team can go.
Yeah, I really think so. Going to that Purdue game, LaQuinn Ross, 17 points. Linzel Smith Jr., 16 points. 2 very good numbers there for the Buckeyes. They did a very good job. And looking at the Buckeyes' numbers, as we've mentioned earlier, they're shooting, it's getting better. Second half of the Purdue game, they were shooting 50% from the field. And we've seen in the past, struggling in the second half, this time shooting well. First half was roughly 43%. Either way, the Buckeyes, Hayden, going forward, this team, if they keep on doing like this, they could make a legitimate run to maybe get second or third, even chase first in the Big Ten.
Yeah, the Big Ten is topsy-turvy right now. I mean, we're going to get into that a little bit. The Big Ten is just a big jumble right now. I mean, everybody's winning, everybody's losing. Teams that you didn't think would win, it's a mess. But it makes for great. First of all, it makes for great viewing as a fan and as somebody who covers the games. But I mean. It's definitely interesting to see what's going to happen because if Ohio State keeps playing this way, as you said, I think they'll definitely make their way to the top. But if they can't find the offense, if LaQuinn Ross goes hiding into his hole, or if Aaron Craft doesn't show up against the way he did against Wisconsin, I mean. You don't know. You don't know what team you're going to get with this Ohio State team. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can continue what they're doing offensively.
And really tonight, since we taped the show on Tuesday, tonight it's a big one. Ohio State versus Michigan. Michigan coming off of a loss, coming into Columbus to take on the Buckeyes here. I mean, just a little bit of a preview. If the Buckeyes keep playing the way they do, will they be able to win this game and make it a 4-game win streak?
Absolutely. I think if they play their style of basketball where they're playing defense or they're hitting shots, there's nobody that can beat them. Especially without McGarry, I think Michigan's a much less formidable team. They've shown that they can play well if Stauskas is on his game. If he's shooting well, they're shooting well. So Aaron Craft does a huge, huge job in front of him guarding Stauskas. If he can shut down Stauskas, which I think he's perfectly capable of doing, Ohio State will definitely win this game. But if Stauskas goes off, I would not expect things to go Ohio State's way.
I think Michigan, we know last year they had Trey Burke, that cast, they struggled a little bit into the season, sort of got cold in March, then when the tournament started, got hot, got down to the Final Four, to the championship game. But I think this year, you have Derek Walter Jr. on that team. We mentioned Nick Strauskis, Chris Levert, Spike Albright. These guys, for Michigan, this team, if they can find their groove and they can get the scoring going down, this could easily be a high-scoring contest, and really, it could be a struggle and really the tug-of-war for the Big Ten to try to get back into striking distance within Michigan State.
Right. I think this is kind of that tug-of-war. Ohio State's looking to bounce over Michigan at this point. And I said it from the beginning. If Ohio State this game is a turning point for one of these teams, because if Michigan loses again, I think they're well on their way to being a they're going to free fall. They're going to continue to free fall. It'll be interesting to see if they can how far they'll fall. And same goes for Ohio State. If Ohio State loses, you're going to see a team that's in limbo. You don't know whether they're going to take the next step or go down. It's going to be kind of middle of the road for them. So I always thought this game was going to be a turning point, maybe more so for Ohio State because of the way they were playing a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But right now, if Ohio State loses this game and they play well, I think they'll be okay. But if they really struggle, I don't know. And Michigan, likewise. If Michigan really struggles and loses, it's going to be a long road for them.
I think so for Ohio State. They re-entered the top 25, I believe, 21st or 22nd. 22nd right now. But the big thing is, if they lose this game, they'll go right off the charts again. I really think it doesn't matter if they lose by 2 or 3 points or they lose by 10. That's going to be enough of, hey, that's a loss. You drop down. A couple teams behind them will subsequently win. A few will lose. Maybe a couple will lose. But I think for the Buckeyes, a loss here at home, especially a home loss, even if it's bad, they will drop right back out of the top 25, which for the past 4 or 5 years, it's been really odd to see an Ohio State team without a number next to their name, especially a lower, like a 2022 number. We've rarely seen that from Ohio State under Thad Matta.
Yeah, it's Ohio State at home. This is a big game for Ohio State. They're playing at home. They're playing to keep that number next to their name, as you said, and they're playing Michigan. I mean, they got everything in front of them. They need to go out and do it, because if they don't, they know what's going to happen. They know that Michigan's going to have that over them. They know they lost a game at home to a team that, could be considered in middle of the road, could be considered beatable, and then you lose to Michigan. As an Ohio State player, you don't want to lose to Michigan in anything ever. So, this game is going to be a lot of fun just to watch, because there's going to be so much passion from both sides, as there always is in an Ohio State-Michigan game. It's one of the biggest rivalries in sports, if not the biggest rivalry in college sports. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen, but either way, it's going to be a turning point. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, really looking at Michigan, their last game, they played Iowa, lost that game, and it really wasn't that close of a ball game. They ended up losing by roughly, I believe, 22 points here. Michigan was number 10 once upon a time, Iowa 17. And looking at that game, and Chris Levert, 22 points. Strauskis held to 10 points, 3 of 6 shooting. Iowa, they just went off completely. They were shooting 8 of 11 from three-point range in the first half. And looking even further into the numbers right here, if this Michigan team shows up tonight, it could be the same kind of deal, especially if Amadeo starts shooting threes, Sam Thompson starts getting alley-oops. The worst thing that can happen for a team like Michigan is to allow Ohio State to get momentum, especially in the student section.
Yeah, if Ohio State has momentum, it's going to be problematic for Michigan. If things start going their way, as you said, if Sam Thompson throws down a big one, if Aaron Craft gets a steal from Stauskas, if there's a big block, it's going to be hard for them to reverse the momentum. But if there's any team that can do it, it's Michigan. You know, Stauskas is a pure shooter. I mean, that kid can score the basketball, and if he gets even a couple open shots, he's going to make Ohio State pay, and that's something that can easily turn momentum around. So again, I think Michigan they struggle when Stauskas is not playing well. I think he's their go-to guy, he's their X factor, and if Ohio State can stop him, if anybody can stop him, you know, Iowa stopped him. Iowa forced him to take only 6 shots, still scored 10 points. But definitely not the same team without him scoring big numbers. Even with LeVert scoring 22, they don't win. Right. I mean, it's that kind of team where if one guy goes, the rest go, and that's the key. That's the key to beating Michigan right now. Once McGarry gets back, that might change. But for right now, beating Michigan is all about beating Stauskas and keeping him under wraps.
Speaking about beating Michigan, Wisconsin took on Michigan State this past weekend, and in that game, Trayvon Jackson, his dad, Jim Jackson, winner at Ohio State, legendary player here, hits a game-winning shot with about 2 seconds left, sinks Sparty, a 60-58 win for Wisconsin in the Kohl Center, a place where they struggled. They lost to Northwestern there. They lost to Ohio State there. Rare losses from a Bo Ryan team at home, finding their groove with a big win against really the top dogs in the conference in Michigan State.
Yeah, this is the Big Ten being the Big Ten. I mean, Wisconsin, free-falling, just absolutely free-falling. They were number 3 in the country like Ohio State was, lost 5 in a row, something like that. I don't know.
It was a very un-Wisconsin number, I know that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you lose at home to Northwestern, Ohio State, it just looks terrible. And then they go beat the best team in this conference in Michigan State. It's like, what is going on? But I was watching the game. Adrian Payne hit the 3. I said, oh, no, Wisconsin's about to do it to themselves again. They're about to, take it to overtime and lose because Michigan State would have had all the momentum. But Mr. Jackson dribbles down the floor, hits the shot, wins the game. It was a really cool moment to see for him, especially on his home floor. So, again, but I guess this just goes to show that anybody in the Big Ten is beatable at any point. Michigan State is beatable, Ohio State's beatable, Wisconsin, anybody is beatable by anybody. And it'll be interesting to see whether, come tournament time, whether all this beating up on each other is good or it's bad. We've seen where it's good, with Michigan making the title game last year, Ohio State making the Elite Eight, and we've seen where it's bad, where Indiana was 16th or finished in the Sweet 16, and other teams lost. So again, it's all about the Big Ten and how these type of games are gonna factor come later.
Yeah, I believe overall as a conference, I think everybody's above 500. If they're not, it's only 1 or 2 teams that are either even or about 1 or 2 games below. But, I mean, looking back at the Michigan State-Wisconsin game, Adrian Payne has 24. Travis Trice has 13. Wisconsin bringing the heat. Sam Decker's got 11 points. Frank Kaminsky, 10. I mean, Trayvon Jackson only had 7 points, 3 of 5 shooting. So, in that kind of situation, he's not one of your top scorers, yet he's taking the final shot, and he's hitting the final shot there. I think that's a morale booster for Wisconsin. Even though your star's having a bad day, one shot can really change the momentum. And really for Wisconsin, this changes the outlook for the entire season now. Yes, you will live and die on last-second shots. They saw that against Ohio State. They lost on the last-second shot, missed a game tire and a game winner too. But I think for this Wisconsin team, it just adds more to the whole nonsense that is college basketball this season, where really no game is guaranteed anymore. It used to be, it's like, okay, you play Penn State, you play Northwestern, guaranteed victories. That time has changed, especially started last year, and really this year, you can't take anybody for granted anymore.
No, you can't take anybody for granted at any point whatsoever, and that's the greatest thing about this Big Ten. It just makes for such a good basketball conference. But real quick, I mean, in terms of Wisconsin, yes, they're going to, as you said, they're going to play every game really close. They're going to play you close no matter where they are, where you are. It'll be interesting to see if this will be the thing that changes everything around, if this will be the turning point for them, as Ohio State kind of had a turning point winning there and winning in Iowa. We don't know yet. We'll see tonight. I think tonight will be a big guess as to where they're going to go. But Wisconsin, that might have been the turning point for them. But I just want to say this too. You said Adrian Payne scored 24 points. Adrian Payne was out against Michigan when Michigan played them in Michigan State. I mean, I don't think we take that nearly enough into account when we're talking about Michigan and Michigan State because when Adrian Payne is playing,
they become very unbeatable. I mean, Michigan State become a dominant force here, especially. I mean, against Ohio State, a couple throwdown dunks there, especially at home. You have the entire arena up on their feet. If he's gone, who knows, Ohio State may have won that game, but with him in there, it makes life about 10 times tougher to win and even shoot the ball.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Adrian Payne is such a monster. He just dominates everything. He gobbles everything up. Remember Ohio State when he had a bad foot.
Yeah, he wasn't 100% in that game.
Wasn't supposed to play. Throws putback dunks down. Makes us look like just complete. It was awful interior defense from us or from Ohio State. But I don't know. He's just a dominant player. I would love to have him on my NBA team.
You would?
Yes.
A guy that a lot of people may draft, Marcus Smart, and he will get drafted, yes, but it's not helping his stock. The conflict with a Texas Tech fan, Jeff Orr. I mean, I think the sequence was Smart falls into the crowd, Orr says something to Smart. Smart gets up, shoves him back. Now he's been suspended for 3 games. I mean, just Hayden, your thoughts on this thing? I get it. He's a kid. He's been under criticism the past couple weeks for his play and stuff. But really, was 3 games enough for him?
This is really interesting to me. I read an article on Marcus Smart and the adversity that he's gone through growing up, and I guess it kind of turned me a little biased for him. But I think as a kid, yes, he did something very wrong. You don't go into the crowd. You don't push somebody. You don't. I know this is going to sound cliche, but on the court, you got to be in the zone. You cannot take into account all the external factors. If you want to, if the crowd's backing you and you want to use that to motivate you, that's fine. But you don't take individual threats and little stuff like that and let it get to you. It just shows immaturity. And I don't think Marcus Smart is all there yet in terms of maturity. He's a young kid. I mean, understandably so as a freshman. But you can't let this kind of stuff happen. And I think 3 games is enough. I think he learned his lesson. I think he will learn his lesson. But it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back, how he handles the criticism, how he handles adversity, and how this affects his draft stock. Our team's going to say, this kid couldn't handle 1 player. This kid couldn't handle 1 super fan from Texas Tech. How's he going to handle an NBA environment? I mean, it's a lot different. So I'm interested to see how it's going to play out. Still think Marcus Smart is a tremendous basketball player. Still think he has a little bit to go in terms of maturity, but I think he can get there. I don't think he's a bad kid at all, and I think he's going to show people how mature he is.
I think 3 games, I'm going to say, is enough for him. I think if the fan, Jeff Orr, he says he called him, quote, a piece of crap, unquote. I have a tough time seeing that's the only thing he said to him. If that's all he said, I don't think Smart would have charged after him and shoved him back. So looking at the camera angles, you don't see what happened before he fell. You see it after he fell and the confrontation happens. But I think for Marcus Smart, it's a learning experience. I mean, you're getting criticized in the past couple of weeks. This happens. 3-game suspension. His press conference seemed pretty good. He handled himself pretty well. He's sitting upright, very giving all of his attention to. He knows the gravity of the situation right now. And I think for Oklahoma State, they were struggling with him on that team. They're going to probably struggle with him gone. I mean, 3 games, they will drop a little bit. But I think for Marcus Smart, if he uses this as a motivation factor the right way, Oklahoma State, they may benefit well after this, but it's not a good situation to have right now, especially when your team is in the thick of things to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no, it's not good for them right now. Eventually, as you said, I think you can channel it. I think you can channel this experience, make it a learning experience, make it about maturity and toughness, and you can take it like that, and you can channel it into something really, really positive for this group. And I think that's what they're going to have to do, especially with all this, as you said, with them trying to get in the NCAA tournament and whatnot. They need to channel this in the right way and push it in a positive direction.
Also in the Big 12 news, game that happened last night, Kansas State versus Kansas. Kansas State has dropped the past 48 of 51 to brother Kansas. Ooh. Well, they didn't drop the one last night. They tried giving it away though. But Kansas State, an 85-82 victory at home in Manhattan, Kansas. Fans stormed the court. But really, it goes back to the whole thing, Hayden. There are no such thing as guarantees, especially games on the road.
There are no such thing as guarantees, but I think this matchup is about as close as it gets with Kansas and Kansas State. I mean, Kansas usually dominates.
Yeah.
You got to remember, Kansas State has Bruce Weber, who was the head coach at Illinois for a long time, ran a really nice program over there, is starting to turn things around for Kansas State. Frank Martin used to be at Kansas State, but they hired Weber over after he was gone. I love the hire. I love Bruce Weber. I think he's going to turn things around. I think this is the first step in that direction. Beating Kansas is a huge win.
Right.
By far his biggest win thus far. I think that this is the turning point for that program. I think you're gonna start seeing them getting better and better and better.
Well, that's all the time we have right now for college basketball. We will take a short break and come back with some more sports here on the National Hour.
Hello and welcome back to the National Hour. We're about to get into our potpourri of sports, a term we've coined here at the National Hour.
Oh, yeah.
So we're about to get into a lot of different things, but we're going to start off with Ohio State's National Signing Day on last Wednesday. A big day for Ohio State. They had 23 recruits in all coming to the new class. Jeff, I want to ask you, out of these 23 names, and it was ranked the number 3 recruiting class in the country by Rivals.com, which is the best name that you see here?
I'm going to go with the dual threat QB, Stephen Collier. I think he's one of the best guys out there. I believe he's like the number 12 dual threat QB in the country. We've seen Urban Meyer and what he can do with quarterbacks. We saw in Bowling Green, Jacobs was pretty good. Goes to Utah, has Alex Smith, turns him into a number 1 NFL draft pick. Goes to Florida, inherited Chris Leak, won a title with Chris Leak, brought in Tim Tebow, won a title with Tim Tebow. Tebow and Leak, really both dual threat quarterbacks, could pass and throw. I think for Collier, one of the first QBs Urban can start from the ground up. I think good things are going to happen for this kid if he just follows Urban Meyer's directions.
I like it. I'm a big quarterback guy myself. I love watching quarterbacks and whatnot, but I'm going to pull a little bit of a Corso here. I'm going to go, not so fast, my friend. Not so fast. It's going to be Raekwon. Raekwon McMillan, the 5-star linebacker from Hinesville, Georgia. He's a monster, 6'2", 242 pounds. Just athletic as can be, the prized possession of this recruiting class. I think he's just going to solidify that linebacking group, especially with Ryan Shazier out. We could see a Boza type or Boza-like influence. You know, Boza came in as a freshman, played very well, was an All-American freshman for Ohio State this past season. I think we're going to see the same thing with Raekwon. He's going to replace Shazier. He's going to be very, very good from the get-go, and he's going to be he's going to be the guy. He's going to anchor that defense.
The guy?
He's going to anchor that defense for years to come. Any other thoughts on National Signing Day for Ohio State?
I think for Ohio State, they got 3, 4, 5 O-line guys really that they're going to need. We knew Muhort.
Yep.
I mean, Lindsley. Everybody's leaving. So this O-line, there's got to be really a fight for who wants that starting position here. And really, if one of these guys picks up the starting gig, got 3, possibly 4 years here to really make a name for yourself and really at Ohio State. If you can play well here, you're probably going to get drafted really high up when the draft day comes for you.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with the offensive line. They're going to need to step up very quickly. I know Urban Meyer has talked about this. A lot of guys leaving. You need guys to step up. If one of these guys, if only just one, can have a Boza-like season where he steps in and it makes an immediate impact and plays really, really well, the sky's the limit for this team. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they're going to do. But you know that the offensive line is definitely something to key on. All right, switching it up. Hockey time in Columbus. We're going to talk a little NHL action with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Almost going ahead of yourself there and trying to go to the NBA over the NHL.
NBA, baby. No, NHL. Hey, we talked about this last week. Columbus fever. Blue Jacket fever in Columbus. So, all right, so the Blue Jackets did, as we said, lose the last 2 games of the before the Olympic break. We said that they needed to go into the break strong. They did not. Why?
Well, scoring was a factor there. They lost to the Kings. Well, let's start off 3 games on the road in the West. They played San Jose. They played L.A. They really played everybody in the state of California. The big loss. L.A. was a 2-1 loss, and that game really they were in this game for most of it, but a loss in overtime. It doesn't help you. Really, as a morale thing, this Ohio State team, they opened up with a first period goal. Ohio State team. See, it's Columbus.
There's so many sports.
We've been talking about Ohio State for the past, 4 minutes. Now we got to talk about the Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets now. First period, Jack Johnson scores off the snapshot. You're thinking, hey, this Blue Jackets team. I didn't say Ohio State team. I said Blue Jackets team this time. Can't look at. Now I don't know what camera to look at now. I'm just so out of sorts right now. But either way, Jack Johnson scores. L.A. comes back, third period goal. Jake Musin off a tip-in. Really 3 minutes into that period, and really this game is 1-1. Maybe someone will score before regulation ends. Not really. In overtime, Robin Rager slap shot goal. Just like that, it's 2-1 Kings over the Blue Jackets. And really for the Blue Jackets, it was a tough loss. It's okay. You had one more game before the break against San Jose, and the Sharks once again got to the Blue Jackets. And really, again, it's a 1-goal loss. They're not losing by 2 or 3 goals, but the fact that you're losing and not getting any points, that puts the Blue Jackets right out of the playoff picture by just 1 lone point right now.
So do you think that these games, do you think the Olympic break, do you think they're looking ahead? Do you think that played a factor in this?
I mean, I think this Blue Jackets team, they played the Capitals a couple weeks ago, blew them out, played the Florida Panthers, won that game. And it's just the road games when you leave Nationwide Arena, it's a road game. Your fans aren't going to travel in droves like they normally do. And really, San Jose was able to bring their fans in. The Kings were able to bring their fans in. I mean, you look at this game against San Jose. I mean, John McCarthy, his first goal of the season, deflected goal. Patrick Marleau, a veteran, scores all within 10 minutes of each other in the first period. So already at the starting gate, you're down 2-0. Blue Jackets are normally used to being down 1 or maybe up 1 or 2, and with the fans to really fuel them the rest of the way. They had to claw their way back, quickly scored in the second off of a Ryan Johansson wrist shot. But then third period, Tommy Wingles, backhanded shot, goal for San Jose. It's 3-1, 10 minutes remaining. Boone Jenner scores, makes it 3-2. But really, when you're on the road, 1 goal, that feels like an eternity and really an infinite amount of goals to get back into it. And the Blue Jackets, at 1-2 loss against the Kings in OT and a 3-2 loss to San Jose in really a full 3 periods, it hurts them, but they have a couple weeks to get their act together. I believe 4 of the players, especially Bobrovsky's in the Olympics right now. But I think for the rest of the team who isn't traveling in the Olympics, just get yourself together, come back. You're not out of the playoffs completely. You're up by 1 point. That's really just 1 win. You get back together, go on a good 4 or 5 game win streak, and you're right back into the playoffs.
Right. I think for this Blue Jackets team, I think, going on the West Coast in hockey is tough. Going on the West Coast anywhere is tough, especially from the East Coast. So I wouldn't put too much into these 2 games. If I'm the head coach of the Blue Jackets, if I'm saying, okay, we were rolling, we went to the West Coast, struggled a little bit. We got an Olympic break, get it together, relax, and get ready for a second half push, because that's all they need. They only need 1 win and they're in. So they just got to keep pushing the way that they had right before the Olympic break, and you just got to hope that the Olympic break and all that time off doesn't do anything too harmful.
Yeah, that's the big thing. What you don't want to do is come off it and lose 3 or 4 games and dig yourself into a deeper hole. I don't see that happening with the Blue Jackets. Nathan Horton, Bobrovsky, this team is loaded with stars. So I expect they'll come back, win just like they did before the break, and be right back in the hunt for the 6, 7, 8 position in their conference.
You know what I'm about to say again. Switch.
Reverse.
NBA action right now. Finally, after I said NBA before, we're going to get into a little bit of a debate here right off the bat. The Cleveland Cavaliers, who I talked about in last week's Final Thoughts, win 2 games. They won the last 2 games they played. They played tonight at Sacramento. They fired Chris Grant. What is going on with the Cavs right now?
Everything is going wrong for them right now. Even though they've won 2 games, 3 of 7 in their last 10, they are 22 games out of first, but they're not even going to even catch the Pacers. You're more concerned about the 8th spot that the Charlotte Bobcats have right now. They're about 4 games out of it. Really, Cleveland, they're not completely out of the picture yet, but you got to win some games. I mean, you bring in Luol Deng, and he's like, I can't work with this, man. I need some help. I've left Chicago, a place that normally wins. We've advanced. You had Derrick Rose, was good. Now you come to a place like Cleveland where no one's taking themselves seriously here. I mean, look at it. I mean, if this team even had thought for a second they were in the playoff hunt, they would play a lot better. I mean, 3 of 7 in your last 10, that is one of the worst records among teams in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, only 2 that are worse, 1-9 in their past 10, and that's Philly and Milwaukee, the 2 bottom teams in that conference. I mean, you can't do that. You have Kyrie Irving. This team has stars. Brown's back. I mean, if they just got in the right mentality, they would be fine. The question is, how long will it take to find it, and will they even find it before the season ends?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, right now it seems like they're playing well. Waiters, fine. I mean, the last 2 games they've been playing really well. It seems like Kyrie and Dion are getting along better. I think that was a huge argument or a huge clash there. Those guys' personalities, their playing styles. But if they're playing well together, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely.
And I just don't know if at this point it's too late for them to get into the playoffs. I know the Eastern Conference is weak, but they're going to have to play really, really well My concern is that they just haven't done enough at this point to get to the playoffs, no matter how well they play. I think that they've underperformed so much that it's going to be that much tougher for them to get in the playoffs. But we'll see. I mean, if Kyrie and Dion put it together, and if the Chris Grant firing somehow fired these guys up, and they win the next 2 games and they go on a 4-game win streak, they're almost right back in it.
You're getting way too ahead of yourself, man. 4 games. Let's take it a game at a time right now.
This is coming from the guy who said, I don't believe anymore. But I'm just saying, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But if they play well, and they play well enough to at least compete for a playoff spot, it could mean good things this offseason. They have a lot of cap room. They have a lot of flexibility in terms of trades. I'm not talking about you-know-who.
I'm not bring him back.
I'm not talking about him. I'm not getting my hopes up. Not getting my hopes up about that.
LeBron, the king, will return to claim his castle in Cleveland. You don't believe that's going to happen?
I don't believe that's going to happen. I think that ship sailed once they understood that they're not going to reach 500. But it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with all that money and that flexibility. It'll be interesting.
Really, for that team, as you said, if they have money, they can get some stars. I mean, somebody will be on free agency. Somebody will probably want out and say, hey, pay me money, I'll come in. That could be all it takes. If you get someone that can coexist with Kyrie Irving, who knows? This team could actually take off. But I think for Cleveland, you have the money moving forward. Start looking now. Who do you think is going to be a good puzzle piece here? I mean, it's like Cleveland is like a huge puzzle that no one has the directions to how to put it together. If they have a little bit of sense of direction, I think they can pull it together. If this team can win, it'll be like the same team in the mid-'90s that was actually competitive. The LeBron days of this team could make the playoffs. The city of Cleveland, this team, for the better part of the 2000s, was a playoff team. The city was behind their team and when they were winning. Now that they're not winning so much, the fans have dropped off a little bit. But all it takes is a couple wins to string together, bring a person back for every single game in the attendance, and you'll have a packed house before you know it. But the thing is, you have to win games. You can't get embarrassed by a team like the Lakers who only play 5 or 6 guys and lose by about 20 points. You can't have that.
That was bad.
If you lose close, but it'd be better if you can try to get the win.
Yeah, that was the turning point. After that Lakers loss, Chris Grant was fired. Anthony Bennett's starting to play well. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that things have completely switched for the Cavs. I'm not saying that they're on the right path, but I would just hope that into next year you could see some progress. I mean, I know I hate that word, especially,
Wait till next season.
Yes, Cleveland fans are so used to that word, progress, wait till next year, blah, blah, blah. But I just could see if they start playing well now, you could see the group coming together and that puzzle piece and that puzzle actually taking shape. All right, I've had enough Cavs talk. We'll be back, and when we're back, we're going to talk some Olympics, we're going to talk some baseball, and we're going to share our final thoughts. Stay tuned.
And welcome back here on the National Honor. We're here on our final segment. I'm Jeff Hammersley. Alongside me, Hayden Grove. Hayden, baseball pitchers and catchers report back. You ready for this?
I'm very ready. I've been ready for a long time. I'm so excited for this season. Admittedly, it's hard with all the snow around in Columbus. It's hard to get into the baseball mode, but I am so excited. I just want it to be spring. I want all the snow to melt. But I'm ready. I'm really ready for this.
All right, going into this season, I know the season won't start for another couple months really before it really takes hold, but any odds-on favorites going into the spring training that you're feeling that could possibly make a World Series push, maybe a pennant chase for their side of the conference?
Yeah, I think conference. What is this football, Jeff?
You have AL, then you have the NL.
You got leagues. You got leagues.
Look, also when you're within the conference, you have like the Central Division. Well, that's also divisions.
Division.
Too. Well, I've made 2 mistakes already. I'm sorry. I'll do better next week.
Regardless, I think Detroit's got to be the front runner. Their pitching staff is so good. When you have Verlander, when you have Scherzer, when you have Anibal Sanchez, Miggy Cabrera, the best hitter in the league, I think they have to be a favorite. I think you also have to look at the defending champs, Boston Red Sox. I mean, they certainly have it going. Of course, you lose Jacoby. That's not a great thing, but I still think they can get it done with their pitching staff. I think it's all about pitching. In terms of a dark horse, I really don't know. I think you could say that Kansas City has a chance. I think that they've put together a solid lineup over there. I don't know if they could outlast the Indians, outlast Detroit, though, in that division and get into the playoffs. Tampa Bay always seems to be a dark horse, too. They always have, their moments, and they always seem to be in the race. So it'll be interesting to see. In terms of NL, I think it's got to be St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis runs such a good organization. I mean, from top to bottom, that might be the best organization in sports. You lose Pujols, doesn't matter. You're still in the World Series every year. I mean, I think St. Louis is the team you got to look out for in the NL. So I would not be surprised to see a Detroit-St. Louis World Series. That would be my prediction as of right now.
So even though the Yankees can bring the Japanese sensation Masahiro Tanaka to the team, signed to a monstrous deal, you don't have the Yankees in that conversation.
I don't. I just don't think they're ready. I don't think they've meshed. I think you're looking at a CC Sabathia who has digressed. I think you're looking at a Mark Teixeira who has regressed. I think you're looking at without Robbie Cano, that's definitely not a good situation. You add Ellsbury, but I don't think that matters all that much, especially when you lose Curtis Granderson. A-Rod.
Who can forget about the whole A-Rod
that's
the
a
past
mess.
couple months?
Derek Jeter. I have a lot of respect for Derek Jeter, but he's just not the player he used to be. When you have Brett Gardner as one of your studs, I think this year, I just can't see them making the playoffs. I can't even see them, you're talking about World Series. I can't see them making the playoffs. So the Yankees will be interesting. They're only interesting because of Tanaka. If Tanaka can just be the best pitcher we have ever seen, they might have a chance. But other than that, I just don't see it.
Okie dokie. That will wrap up our preview of the pitchers and catchers reporting to spring training right now. Now, something that happens in the winter every 4 years. Winter Olympics in Sochi took place last week. Opening ceremonies happened. Was an issue in the opening ceremony. You had like the Olympic rings in the opening ceremony. 4 of them opened up. 1 didn't. So you had 4 rings and a star, basically. Not a good way to start it off. That's your logo. And really, also hearing what the media and press members had, it was one of these situations where one of the writers has 3 light bulbs. I have 3 light bulbs. I'm willing to trade for a doorknob. Not joking. So really, for media members, it was kind of being taken back here. Billions of dollars, I believe like $40 billion has been put together for this Olympics, and you have half-built hotel rooms. That's not a good way to start off the Olympics, is it, Hayden?
No, it's definitely not. Maybe that's what's put me off about this Olympics. I mean, we were talking earlier about how I haven't really been paying all that much attention just because of the massive workload that I have, but also because I don't know. Something just puts me off about these Olympics this year. I don't know if it's the way that, with all of this, I don't know, just all of the external factors. I kind of just want to focus on the sports rather than everything else. Because I think right now, everything else is taking precedent over what's happening. And I know these athletes work so hard. This is their moment. These athletes work for 4 years. They train every day. They sweat. They bleed. I mean, it's cliche, but at the same time, it's real. I mean, athletes do that. And I think that this is their time to shine. It's not about, a light or a snowflake or a ring not going off and bad media conditions. I think we need to focus on the athletes and what they're doing.
Well, going into the Olympics, one of the big events that opened up in Sochi was the team figure skating. That was the first time they had that. The Russians on home soil winning it. Evgeny Plashenko, he's won gold in Torino, had a silver in Vancouver. Julia Lubnitskaya, 15-year-old phenom, helping bring the gold home for the Russians, so a really good opening up for them. And really what happened earlier today, Shaun White in the half pipe did not bring home gold. He brought home nothing there. He was injured for one of the earlier events, pulled out of it, focused on this one, comes in 4th place. I mean, really, Hayden, how shocked are you over that? When he was really going in, and if you had to bet money, he's your guarantee for gold, and it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, it's been so tough for him. I feel like this is his kind of last showing, and it's been really hard. He's been hurt. He's had all these kind of different things happening to him, in terms of media and whatnot. I don't know. I wasn't going to say that I expected him not to win, because of course you do. He's the elder statesman of this half-pipe competition. He's been the face of snowboarding for so long. But I think when you really look at it, I mean, the injury is probably much worse than we could even imagine. I think that, that coupled with everything else, I don't know. Shaun White is great. Fantastic even. I mean, I've admired him for a long time, but I think his time is coming to an end. It does for everybody.
Looking for the Americans right now. At this moment, they stand with 7 medals, 4 bronze, 1 silver, 2 gold. The 2 gold medals, Sage Katzenberg and Jamie Anderson in snowboarding. That wraps up our sports, and now we will do our final stories. We are now less than 3 weeks away from March Madness, and subsequently, basketball, and some more March Madness. It wasn't too long ago, like 2 weeks ago, that Ohio State was in the conversation to be in the NIT, the National Invitational Tournament, instead of the actual NCAA tournament. Oh, how the times have changed. Now Ohio State is easily a shoo-in to be in the NCAA tournament and in the thick of March Madness coming up. In a season where college basketball has made little sense, upsets that have about a 1% chance of actually happened, there have been lots of news and entertainment. In my opinion, I think that this has been one of the better basketball years so far, especially in the Big Ten. Yes, Michigan State is currently one of the best teams in the conference, but the rest of the Big Ten, literally the entire Big Ten, isn't too far behind. Coming down the home stretch, it'll be an exciting and nerve-wracking month for some schools, hence why I'll call it Frantic February.
Missouri's Michael Sam has come out as the first openly gay Division I collegiate football player. If you haven't heard the news by now, you must be living under a rock. Seriously. Sam's statement has made for some interesting words and opinions from all around the country and even around the world on the issue. And since you've all been waiting so patiently, here's my opinion. I wholeheartedly respect Michael Sam for his announcement. I can't imagine the internal struggle with which he's had to battle for so many years, and I'm happy that he was finally able to share who he is with the world. That being said, however, I yearn for the day where this isn't news. I yearn for the day that one's sexual orientation shouldn't be cause for this kind of coverage. If Michael Sam is truly a good player, a good teammate, and a good person, his sexual orientation should not matter. All week, I've been hearing about Sam's draft stock and how it will fare following his announcement. I've heard some say that it will fall, and others say that it will rise. How about if it remains the same? Isn't that what we strive for in this country? Equality? Both gay and straight players should be looked on in the same light. They should be evaluated on their talent and their work ethic, not who they're attracted to. At the end of the day, again, I'm glad that Michael Sam took a stand. It was honorable, and I wish him the best. That being said, I yearn for the day that someone coming out is not news.
And that does it for this week's edition of the National Hour. I'm Jeff Hammersley, alongside me Hayden Grove. Catch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Channel 19 on campus, and this show on YouTube. And you can watch the rest of our shows that we have in the account. See you guys next week.